and that means a minimum of 6 members. We're well past that, thankfully. And I've got to make this statement as normal. Today's meeting is being filmed for live and subsequent broadcast by way of the Council's internet site. The images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the Council. Proposed public speakers have been made aware of the broadcasting arrangements prior to this meeting. Would members please keep their microphones and cameras turned off unless invited to speak by the chair to contribute to the meeting, and please remember to switch off your microphone and camera when you have finished. Also, could you ensure that you refrain from using any mobile devices during the planning committee, and any mobile phones, iPads are switched off or on silent. First item on the agenda are apologies. Are there any apologies?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, the declaration of interest. Any member wishing to make a declaration of interest, and if so, on which matter? No. And then we come to the next item on the agenda, the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of May, 2021. I think it's only one page. Any matters arising from those minutes, please? No. Is somebody prepared to propose their correct record?
True record, Chair.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 1, and it's in the planning application schedule on pages 15 to 40 of your paperwork. It's application number 20-1225. The site is land to the southwest side of East Dock Road, Newport. The ward is Pilquentley. The ward members are Councillor Ibrahim Hyatt, Councillor Tracy Hollyoak. Presenting office, there are no public speakers listed at the minute. Presenting officer is Gail Parker, who's the Senior Planning Officer. So over to you, Gail.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'll just share my screen for you now. Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is application 2012-25, which is for the construction of a residential development of 149 units, 1 small retail unit, landscaping, car parking, drainage and associated works. And this is the outline of the application site. And this is an aerial image of the application site. So just to run through and give you some context of the site. The site is vacant land. It's been allocated for a housing site in the LDP and before the LDP and the UDP. And it's positioned in between Esquay, which runs along here, and East Dock Road, which runs along here. To the north, you have the BMW and Mini car garage and dealership. And then to the south of the site is the Marston Superb, which is known as the Bliner Wharf. And then in the corner of the site, not part of the application site in here, construction is underway for a Costa Coffee drive-through and restaurant. To the east of the site then you have the Mariners Quay development and the former Black Clawson site, which was developed by Redrow. They're a mix of houses and apartment blocks. And then beyond that you have the Riverside Walkway and then the River Esk. And then to the west of the site is a light industrial area. Within the site itself, you can see here the outline of a public park, which was developed back in 2012. The purpose of that park was to attract a developer to the site. as it's been a long-standing vacant housing allocation which has failed to bring full delivery of housing across the site. So is to entice the developer, basically. It being left really to a bit of neglect recently, which is a bit sad. Nevertheless, it's not allocated for any protection within the LDP. The eastern portion of the site, outside of the site, but within the vicinity, is a recently developed housing site, which has been taken over by the Seren Group. That's 24 houses forming a frontage along East Dock Road, and 21 apartments in apartment blocks along here. Okay, I'll just run through some photos to give you some further context. So this is a photo looking at the north end of the site. You've got the BMW and Mini dealership here, and then this is the Mariners Quay, the apartment blocks of Mariners Quay. Going further along East Dock Road, you can see the Mini garage here, and then those apartment blocks of Mariners Quay. This fenced area is where the application site begins. And then further along East Dock Road, this is that fenced area, which is part of the application site. The application site runs all the way along here. You've got the Mariners Quay development here, and then that more recent housing development just in the distance. And then this is that public park. Going further down East Dock Road, those recently built houses here, and then this is the start of the Red Road development on the opposite side. And now we've come to the end of that road, turning around, looking back up with the Red Road development on the right-hand side, and then the vacant site on the left-hand side, and we're just turning the corner of East Dock Road. On that corner of East Dock Road, in the distance here, you can see Costa Coffee as construction's underway. And then this is that construction site. Costa Coffee building is just off the slide, but this is the access which they're creating, and then that's also the access for part of this development as well. Just on the junction of Esquay and the SDR, looking towards the site, this is where the Costa Coffee would go. This slide isn't quite up to date to show that, unfortunately. Blind Wharf here, and then the Red Road development in the background. On Esquay then, looking at Esquay, here's the development site, and here's the light industrial area. And then this is a look of the boundary of the application site and some of those existing trees which are form a line of trees along Esquay. And then this is the entrance to the public park from Esquay. And there's some more images of the public park. Again, this is the entrance with the Mini dealership in the background. Looking the other way at the entrance to the public park. Another look at the public park. And then this is taken within the public park, which is part now fenced off. And as you can see, it's become overgrown and neglected somewhat. And again, looking at the public park with those more recently built apartments in the background. And a photo taken from within the park, looking into the site with the apartment blocks of the more recent development. And then this is taken from an existing access into the site with the Red Road development in the background. And then just looking the other way from that access, you can see the Costa Coffee in the background. Another look at another part of the site. Obviously you can see it's been vacant and it's slightly overgrown in places. And again, a view from the apartment blocks into the sites. Okay then, so looking at the proposals, I appreciate this image is pretty small, so it's hard to fully understand the proposal. So I will zoom in on sections to give you the detail. Just to broadly speak, however, the development consists of blocks of houses, which have frontage onto East Dock Road and onto Esk Way. The development would use 3 existing access points, which are here, here, and here. This access serving the Costa Coffee in this corner here. And then there would be a creation of one other access point in this location. There would be a central landscaping corridor running through the site, following this cursor, which would provide some open space, informal play, ecological mitigation and sustainable drainage. Okay, so I'll zoom into these areas to give you the details. So I'm going to start in this part of the site. Here we go. So this part of the site, you would find 3-storey houses. 3-storey houses here and 2-storey semi-detached houses. These 3-storey houses would face the apartment blocks of Mariners Quay, and these 2-storey houses would face towards the recently developed housing site I showed you previously, and providing a parking court here. These 3-storey houses have been designed so that they are adaptable, so they can provide multi-generational accommodation. And I'll show you an image of what those 3-storey houses would look like. So this is the frontage, looking from East Dock Road, and this is a street view as you would see it from East Dock Road. So the 3-storey houses and the side elevation of the 2-storey house. And this is what the 2-storey house would look like, obviously, but in semi-detached form. Okay, so I will now show you this area in a bit more detail. Okay, so you've got houses, terraced houses here, facing up towards the landscaping corridor, parking in front of it, broken up with some landscaping, and then housing along here, which faces towards Esk Way, but with a buffer of trees and some footpaths providing links through the trees to Esk Way. There'll be a central parking area, an internal parking area here, but with a flat over a garage located here, which provides some natural surveillance in both directions. And then some bin collection points here and here, which will allow refuse vehicles to service the houses. This pattern is generally repeated in the adjacent block, which I won't show you that one, but and just to give you an idea of what the houses would look like, there's a range of different houses, obviously in terraced form. And this is what the flat over the garage or flat over the parking space would look like. And this is a street view of what the houses would look like if you were stood on Esk Way. Okay, so I will now go back to layout and I will show you this part of the site, which is closer to the Costa. Here you go. So in this area, we've got side and rear gardens facing towards Esk Way, again with that buffer of trees, and then some of the houses facing towards the landscaping corridor, which runs just above here. Again, the houses, they have a similar design as those I've just shown you. And I will show you this part of the site in a bit more detail. So we've got houses with frontage onto East Dock Road, utilising the existing access points, and we have an internal parking area with a flat over a garage, providing some natural surveillance of that area, and then houses here providing a frontage onto the landscaping corridor running along here, and this would be the one new access point which would be created. And then the final area, which I'm going to show you in a bit more detail, is this part of the site. Okay, so again, houses continuing that frontage onto East Dock Road and utilising the existing access into Costa Coffee, which is here. This part of the site would see a 3-storey apartment block, which provides 21 one-bed and 2-bed flats, and a small A1 unit on the ground floor. They've got parking serving the flats on this side, and then parking serving the houses on this side, and then parking serving the apartment blocks on this side, with parking provision then for retail customers here, and a parking space for a service vehicle here, with bin collection points for the commercial storage, bin collection points for the apartment blocks. To show you the apartment blocks, what that would look like. So this is the frontage onto East Dock Road. This is the side elevation, as if you were stood within the Costa Coffee development. This is the rear, and then this is the other side elevation. Okay, before I sort of turn on to the main issues, it's worth mentioning that this site isn't required to deliver any affordable housing. There was an affordable housing strategy for the wider Old Town Dock regeneration area, which was agreed some time ago, and all the affordable housing for the wider site was delivered in the Mariners Quay development, which was and it is managed by Pobble, and that provided 101 affordable units. However, the applicant for this site is Newport City Homes, who is a registered social landlord, and they are proposing to provide 57% affordable units across the sites in various tenures. So there's no requirement to provide this, and as such it's considered to be additionality, and that's considered to be a positive attribute of the scheme. The housing officer for the council notes that there are high numbers of households on the waiting list seeking accommodation in this area, so the development will go some way in contributing to meeting some of that need. Okay, so turning to the issues, and probably before I do that, it's worth giving you some understanding of the history of the site, as this is not the first proposal we've had. And I'll just show you a slide of the extant consent for this site. So planning permission was granted back in 2015 for a predominantly residential scheme, but with some office use, some retail, and some A3 cafe restaurant use. Some of that cafe restaurant use has been taken up by the Costa Coffee development, which is ongoing. The application was a hybrid application, which is both a full and outline permission. The full part of the permission included those 21 houses and 21 apartments, which have now been developed. Much of the rest of the site was in outline, although the permission granted the access points which are existing. So those 3 access points which I showed you, so this access point, this access point, sorry, this access point, this access point, and this access point. And then it also allowed this access point, which will be developed as part of this scheme. You'll note that the layout, although indicative because most of it's in outline, isn't dissimilar to the layout that we're currently looking at this, in that it has this landscaping corridor running through the site. The previous permission allowed it to 288 residential units, with 45 of those now being delivered in that area. So the fallback position for this site is for a greater number of houses. I'll just take you back to the site that we're looking at to avoid any confusion. Okay, so turning to the issues then, firstly on highways. In terms of the impact on the local highway network, we're satisfied, given the extant consent for greater number of houses, and the highway improvements which were delivered as part of that scheme, that the impact on the highway network would be less than that extant consent. And the highways officer is in agreement with this and doesn't object to the impact on the highway network. In terms of access, as I said, it would utilise 3 of the existing access points and create just 1 other onto East Dock Road, which is already being agreed by that access extant consent, and the highway officer has no objection to that access. In terms of the layout, a number of changes have been made and agreed with the highways officer, which includes speed reducing features, turning heads, drop curbs, widening and extending footways, and bin collection points. All of those features are considered acceptable by the highways officer. And the amount of parking also is considered acceptable. There is a reduced amount of parking, but that's been justified through a sustainability appraisal. We recommend a number of conditions to secure some precise detailing and materials within some of the parking banks, and then also a construction environmental management plan. Turning to residential amenity, the proposal's been tested against the guidance in the new dwellings SPG. It's considered that the proposed houses and flats provide a good standard of living for future occupiers, and there'd be no harmful impacts for future occupiers in terms of privacy, light, or overbearing impact, and that's in terms of existing and proposed occupiers. A noise assessment has been carried out, given the proximity to Usk Way, which is a busy road, and that noise assessment has highlighted that some acoustic mitigation is required for properties close to Usk Way, and that would come in the form of acoustic fencing, acoustic glazing and ventilation. There has been some limitation with the noise assessment as a result of COVID. They haven't been able to fully assess the impact of commercial noise as a result of lockdown. However, the report considered it highly likely that the road traffic noise is the predominant noise source. However, we're recommending a condition to secure a further noise assessment and any mitigation coming out of that to be secured through a condition. Turning to the design, the layout is considered acceptable. It provides good active frontage onto both East Dock Road and Usk Way. It's considered that there's good permeability through the site, with good footpath links from Usk Way, taking users through the site and onto the Riverside Park. The landscape corridor is considered a good and welcome feature, which would provide multifunctional space so green space, which would provide community cohesion, sustainable drainage, and ecological mitigation. The designs of the houses and apartments are considered to be of an appropriate scale to the surrounding area, and the materials are also in keeping with the more modern feel of the surrounding developments. In terms of landscaping and trees then, the proposal includes a landscaping strategy, which is considered acceptable as a strategy, although it is lacking in detail at the moment. And we're satisfied that that detailing can be secured through a condition which will allow the developer some flexibility in terms of providing sustainable drainage, a good landscaping treatment, and also play provision, and all of that can come together in a coordinated approach through a condition. In terms of trees, you'll note from the photograph that there are some existing trees on the site, most of which were put in more recently as part of that public park. The tree officer has no objection to the loss of those trees, and their loss will be mitigated by replacement trees throughout the development. There has been one area of a particular discussion around trees, and those trees being those which provide a line of trees along Usk Way. Those existing trees are outside of the site, but they're on council land. There are specimen trees which will mature, and they have a wide canopy, and so going forward it's likely that their canopies are going to conflict with the developments or the gardens of the development. So the council's tree officer was keen and has agreed with the applicant to remove those trees in favour of a tree which would be more suitable for the site. So those existing trees will require ongoing maintenance in terms of trimming, and that will place a real burden on the council in terms of that maintenance work and any traffic management associated with it. So by providing a better specimen tree, which has a narrower canopy but is taller, it's considered that they'll provide a good street frontage, but also will remove that burden in terms of maintenance, and will ultimately provide a tree with better longevity. So we're proposing that the precise detailing around felling and replanting is secured through a condition. Turning on to ecology, ecological matters such as mitigation for the loss of habitats, the translocation of reptiles and enhancements have all been considered acceptable by the council's ecology officer, and those matters are secured through some recommended conditions. Natural Resources Wales, they've also advised that provided a construction environmental management plan is secured through a condition, there'll be sufficient control and avoidance over any potential harmful impacts of construction works to the special features of the River Usk nearby. Turning to air quality, the site isn't in an air quality management area, nor is it within a buffer. However, the air quality SPG does recommend that a traffic survey is provided because the development abuts a major road. In this instance, however, that hasn't been sought, and that's because the extant consent allows for a significantly higher number of houses and thereby a significantly higher number of vehicle movements. The extant consent represents a worse situation. So we've not considered it reasonable to require anything further from the applicant. However, we are recommending a condition to secure vehicle charging points, which will help to improve air quality. And the applicant has confirmed their commitment to installing infrastructure for future charging points for all of the residential parking spaces. And turning to flooding, the site, it's not within a flood zone, but the impact of flooding has been assessed nevertheless, given the size of the site. So an FCA has been submitted a flood consequences assessment, which has concluded that there would be a negligible impact on the proposed development and also the wider area. Natural Resources Wales recommend a condition to ensure adherence with the flood consequences assessment, which recommends that the ground levels are raised to a minimum of 10 meters AOD, and this is the same level then as the houses in this area here. And then finally, turning to planning contribution, the applicant has agreed to pay contributions towards education and leisure. As I said, they're delivering 57% affordable housing, so that's not a requirement of the legal agreement. So in terms of education, there would be £267,699 towards secondary education, which is equivalent to 9 additional pupils. No contributions are sought towards primary education, as there's sufficient capacity in the local school. And then there would be £216,141 towards play provision in Pill, playing fields and the Riverside Park. So play provision and maintenance of those 2 areas. There's an on-site requirement for play provision, which would be provided by the applicant and also maintained by the applicant. So there's no contributions as a result of that. So no contributions sought for the on-site provision and maintenance. So then just to wrap up, overall the proposed development is considered to be acceptable. It would bring forward a long-standing vacant site with an unmet housing allocation and would provide additional affordable housing. All matters are resolved and considered acceptable, with no objections from members of the public or board members or consultees. Planning permission is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and subject to a legal agreement. And that's where I'll finish. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gail, for that excellent presentation. I'll throw it open to committee now. Questions?
Hello.
Right, Jason Jordan, you were first, then Charles Ferris. Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I got cut off through part of that, so I had to change it out of my iPad. Could I go back to the slide 31, please, if possible?
Okay, Gail, did you get
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Here we go. Is that okay? Can you see that?
No, that's wrong. It must be 28, sorry.
20.
That's the one there. Just on whether you've got the houses at the front alongside the front there, and you've got the ones on the side. with the garden space, that garden space is that adequate garden space for that property there as well, though?
There's plot 142.
Oh, I got it.
Oh, yeah.
I can't really see it. You know,
Yeah.
we should really need to see some of these photographs, and we can't really look into them properly.
I mean, I recognise that is a relatively small garden space, but surrounding that, we've got the Riverside Park. There's the landscaping corridor running through the site. So I think when you've got all of those things on your doorstep as well, weighed up against a small garden site, I think.
So is all the properties got smaller gardens then, really, for the size of the properties?
The majority of the gardens are of the standard we would recommend. Right.
Okay. Could you show me where the play area supposed to be? Because I lost a bit of the connection. It sort of, I dipped out a bit, so I couldn't access it. I couldn't hear you talk either because it sort of closed me down off you.
The details of the play areas we've secured through a condition. So the precise detailing really of that whole landscaping area would be tied up with a condition. The reason for that really is that separate to planning permission, they need to get their sustainable drainage approval sorted, and so there may be sort of movement in how that is brought about. So it allows them flexibility to work out, you know, where play space will go, where sustainable features will go, how the landscaping will look. So that detail, yeah, would come forward in a condition.
Yeah, because looking at that there, it doesn't seem they've got no outdoor place area to play with really there. It's all through that application. It's just roads and houses and that's it. You know, there's nothing really there where you can actually put a play area there on that site, is it?
So this area here running all the way through, that's the landscaping corridor. So within there would be areas for some play provision. Right,
and how far away is that then, away from those the properties already on with the Seren houses along the back there? Then are they?
Yeah, I don't know whether you can see it, but this is the outline of the apartment blocks.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know they would benefit from that as well as the new development.
Right. Also, I think I dipped out a bit as well. Where does the retail units go in?
So I'll show you in.
I think it was slide 37. It might have been.
Yeah. So this is the apartment block, and then just to show you a close up, this is the apartment block, and then on the ground floor of that apartment block, it's a small retail unit. It's only 167 square meters. Within there would be the retail units.
Right. Okay. Is there adequate parking then for all houses?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, they've carried out a sustainability appraisal, which means that they've justified a reduction, but you know, we've considered it to be a sustainable area. It's got good transport links. It's got good links to cycle networks as well.
Yeah, okay. On page 33, paragraph 7.173 of the education, it says that the development was served by Pilgrimley Primary School. There's nothing it says about St Michael's School either. Are we thinking of is Pill Primary School being knocked down and being moved over to Mendicliff Road?
I think a part of the Whiteheads scheme would be bringing forward a new school, but we have to assess it at the present time, with Pill Primary School being the school which is in existence. I don't know whether Alan, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just to say that the school is moving over to the Whitehead site, and then Pill will become the Welsh medium school.
Alan, just for the record, could you identify who you are?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm Section 106 officer for the council.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Jason.
It's okay, no problem. With that, I did just say like it was only be an extra 9 places in Pill School as well for the whole of that site.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where would if that's more than we've got 145 units there, you know, if we've got quite a few children, where are the children going to go, and will that new school over on the Whitehead side be in capacity to take any more children from the old Pill Primary School?
I think it's I think they're suggesting a 3-form school on the Whitehead side, but don't quote me on that. I'm sorry. I'm thinking on top of my head. The reason that there's only 9 pupils is because we've got a policy that we don't include the affordable housing in our calculations. So whilst the scheme may generate more than 9 pupils, we only calculate based upon the market units.
Right, I think that's a bit concerning, really, and especially with the children. If we've got children, we can't get them into school at all. And what is Pill Primary at the moment? What sort of elementary school is that?
I think it's 2-form, and the projections, I got the 2020 projections for the next 4 years, and the school is projected to decline in numbers. So that's the latest evidence I've had from education, is that the school is declining in numbers.
How many children's out in 2-form elementary school?
The capacity of Pill, just bear with me, I've got it here somewhere.
So
Capacity of Pill is 565.
And with a 3-form entry, what will that make that be as a 3-form entry school?
I guess that's another 1/3 on top of that, basically.
Is it? Right, okay, no problem. Great, thanks.
Okay, Jason, thank you very much. Charles Ferris.
Thank you, Chairman. Gail, could we go back to the picture that has a sort of overview of the site? I think it was the last one you put up.
Yeah, just doing that now.
Yeah. Strange, I still can't see anybody, but I saw the slides. Yeah, there we are. So bottom left, that's the entrance into Ballantyne's, effectively, isn't it? Although you don't see it.
This point here, yeah, I think that's Frederick Street. Yeah, Ballantyne's gym is here.
Yeah. So over the road from that, in the blank space, that's the sad, neglected, overgrown little park.
The park is, you can, like, it's underlain on here, but yes, where my cursor's kind of circling, that's where the park is at the moment.
So sadly, the overgrown, neglected little park is going to go. There's going to be housing on top of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, fair enough. Now, coming up to this open space, you've got the purple line, which is slightly off parallel to Docks Way, yeah? This
line here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the old town dock wall that's going to be exposed?
It's currently exposed within that overgrown park, and so I think we would seek, as part of the detailed landscaping proposals, to keep that dock wall exposed. When we've explored exposing the rest of the dock wall, because of the water table, it's not been possible basically to expose what's remaining for the rest of the site. So it wouldn't feature in the rest of the site.
I see. So it's only the exposure of the dock wall is only going to be very limited.
Yeah, as it is now, really. Yeah. Which is
probably what, about 30 feet tops? Yeah.
Yeah, around about that. Yeah.
Right. Wasn't there an issue that when they put the sad and overgrown, neglected little park in, wasn't there an idea that maybe they could have turned that into a water feature, counted on natural springs in the area?
It was, to start with. It was a water feature. That's how they were able to expose it. Back when it was first developed, you know, it was wet. There isn't much evidence of that now that it's become neglected and overgrown.
So really, yeah, carry on, sorry.
I was going to say, so this is an opportunity really to kind of restore that feature back into the site.
So the issue of natural springs causing a problem, that's not really a significant issue here, yeah?
It's not one that I'm has come about to this application, not one that I'm aware of.
Okay. If we look at the density, I'm just going by what it looks like. Am I right in thinking that with this new build, taking up the open space out of it, the new residents are going to be a lot more closely packed together than the residents on the other side of the riverbank?
I mean, they're smaller houses. They're a mix of terrace and semi-detached. In terms of density, it's actually a less dense development than the extant consent. You know, there's fewer houses, 149 houses or units compared to the extant consent, which was 288 units. So actually it's a lesser density.
Right. Okay. To me, it looks, as I say, to look at it, it looks as though we've traded the open space, the large open space, against sort of spacing the houses out more evenly as they are on the river bank. But that's, as I say, to my uneducated eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a comment and fine.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Gail.
Okay, Councillor Ferris. Councillor Richard White and then Councillor John Guy, please.
Thank you, Chair. You didn't mention in your presentation something which is in the report, and that is back alleys. And I see the police say that they should be gated. These back alleys, to me, are a bit of a retrograde step in planning. Where are they, and how easy will it be to control them?
So the layout has evolved quite a lot since it first came in. When the first layout that was put before us had back alleys to most of the houses. Obviously that sort of raised a bit of concern with us, and so the developer has done their best to take out nearly all of those back alleys. There are some which still remain, but you know, the police have commented, providing that those back alleys have a secure gate where the occupier only has access to those gates, that you know, they don't see them as a security issue. So they're generally not shared, and they are for one occupier. Just you asked where they were. There's probably one in here, and a similar one in here. But like I said, they have taken out most of the back alleys throughout the scheme.
Well, that's good. One other point as well, the old dock has been filled in. And I noticed there's no mention of any piling hours or piling noise. Will that be covered in the construction management plan?
We will control hours of construction through the construction environmental management plan. So that's all construction activity. They'll need to put forward what hours they wish to work, and you know, we generally have our set hours of being 8 till 6 and 8 till 1 then on a Saturday, no working Sundays, bank holidays.
Okay. So okay, Councillor White? Thank you then.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor John Guy.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say that it's already been mentioned about this site, historic site, the old docks, and the fact that, of course, it's been neglected after being filled in. Was probably about 100 years ago, I suppose, but it was a centerpiece for the whole of Newport, and I think that the scheme itself is pretty good. It's well founded. It covers a lot of points, and that you know, it'll certainly show that we are providing housing, much needed housing, which is a must everywhere, really, particularly in the Newport area. I don't know whether I missed it when you gave your presentation, which I say is very good. Did you mention anything about charging for electric vehicles?
Yeah, so we've put a condition on to secure details of electric charging points. But in addition to that, the applicant has said that they're committed to providing the infrastructure for all of the residential parking spaces to put in electrical charging points in the future. So the infrastructure underground is there for when, you know, electric vehicle cars are more affordable, I guess, and yeah.
Okay, and it was also mentioned by other councillors about there was a bit of a park which was introduced a while ago, pretty well neglected, and obviously that's going to disappear. Is there any way in which we can ensure that any parks provided are properly maintained and not neglected? I mean, that one that's there at the moment, it's pretty grim, you know, it's not being looked after. So I'm always concerned, providing these things, we've got to maintain them, you know, for quality of life for the future, really.
Yeah, so the site is owned by Newport City Homes. They've got a management and a maintenance interest in the site because they're delivering and will be maintaining the affordable housing. So the landscaping that is proposed as part of the scheme would be maintained by the applicant.
Okay, thanks very much. As I said earlier, good presentation, and I'm all for it anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. We now move on to Councillor Watkins, Trevor Watkins, and then William Routley. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A number of things following on from vehicle charging points. Is there any time scale that those have to be in place for residents?
So there's a condition to require the scheme of electrical charging points. So that detail would be secured in that condition. And we can add into the condition that they provide us a timetable. And we certainly have asked for that in other schemes. So a timetable for when they will be delivered. We can certainly word that into the condition.
I'd be grateful if you could. The other thing is the Acer trees along Usk Way. They're currently owned by NCC. They are coming out, and the New Horizon elm trees are going to be put in, according to the document. Now, are they resistant to Dutch elm disease, those particular ones?
Yeah, they're on council-owned land, actually, those trees.
Yeah.
So it's the council's maintenance burden. Yeah, so the tree officer has told me they are resistant to the disease.
Okay. The other thing is, in regards to that, will the area which the trees are in remain in NCC's portfolio? And if so, who is going to fund the costs of maintaining those? So the trees are on council land, so it is for the council to maintain them. The replacement trees will be put in by the applicants, so they will be funding putting the trees in. But the idea of these new trees is that they would reduce the burden in terms of maintenance on the council because they're a more appropriate species that don't require constant trimming. Yeah, I understand that. That's why I asked whether it was going to remain in NCC's portfolio or whether it would be transferred to the Housing Association or not, and who would maintain it. And obviously the cost of replacing those are coming from the Housing Association. That's right. Okay, lovely. Thank you, Chair. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor William Routley.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation this morning. Excellent presentation. Though what worries me is the movement towards smaller gardens in new build houses. We all know that when Dad is cooking, or indeed Mum in the kitchen, we sometimes move our children out to the garden. We wouldn't necessarily send them to a local park, depending on age. Also, the reduction in car park parking spaces. I actually think that that we are in this scheme. I think we're reducing quality over quantity. And when I say quality, I mean the size of the garden spaces and car parking provision that's being allocated. We're just coming out of the back of lockdown, and we have indeed, parks have been locked. So children couldn't go to parks. So you would be expecting families, if this type of thing ever occurred again, to be staying in what could be classed as postage stamp style gardens. I would like to have seen less build, better quality with regards to garden size and parking provision. I think we are building here a recipe for disaster. I honestly believe that desperate people, and we are desperate for housing, let's make no mistake about that, but desperate people will accept desperate situations and conditions. We have to ensure as planners that people have the correct provision to go forward, to be happy, and to have a sustainable future. Mental health provision says that sustainable gardens, big gardens, are better for us. And yet, as a planning committee and as planning officers, you are recommending smaller gardens and less parking places. I just find this unacceptable to me at this moment in time. I welcome your comments, Gail, please.
I think we looked at one garden which was maybe smaller than might be desirable. Like I said, we've assessed the development against the new dwellings SPG, and within that there's a standard for garden size. So 1 square metre of garden for 1 square metre of the footprint of the house, and the majority of the houses meet that standard. So I don't consider that they're sort of postage size gardens. You know, and then there's a balancing situation as well, that obviously we need to make the best use out of lands and brownfield sites such as this. So yes, we need a slightly higher density, and I wouldn't say that slightly higher density is compromising garden sizes in this development. You'll note that a lot of the houses are DQR compliant, so which is a standard set by Welsh Government design quality standard. So the houses themselves are slightly larger than the average house. So that's why I think it provides a good quality of living for future occupiers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jason Jordan.
Sorry, Chair, I had my mic on mute. The second part, car parking. Why are we going for a reduction in car parking spaces when average families car parking is growing for the needs of the average family today? So we have more cars today than we did, let's say, 15 years ago.
So there's now a general sort of approach from national planning policy that we should be moving away from developments which encourage and allow that car-led development. So, you know, a reduction in parking numbers helps with that, but also at the same time, this site is in a sustainable location. You know, we've assessed that, they've provided a sustainability appraisal which shows that to us. it's got good transport links. You can walk into the city centre, and there are good cycle links as well. So I think in this case, it's justified that there's a slight shortfall in parking provision.
I wouldn't accept that it's justified the slight shortfall in parking provision in any way. You speak very eloquently for those who have the ability to walk and those who have the ability to cycle. These days, ability to do both is we have a lot of people who wouldn't have that ability. And so are you saying that the compromise is based upon those who have a bit ability over than those who have no ability to walk or cycle? Then it becomes a trap for them. The public transport links are not the best in the world. Because that's just the way it is, and so sometimes the car that's provided through government helps will help in the mobility of people, and by reducing car parking spaces, you are reducing the mobility of people who may wish to move into these places.
I mean, the only thing further I can say to that is that there's no one house that doesn't have a parking space. They're less one parking space. So, you know, a 3-bedroom house still has 2 parking spaces. So, you know, there's still opportunities for people who need to use a car to be able to park their car.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Routley, and then it's Councillor Jason Jordan, then Councillor Trevor Watkins. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, that was a question I asked earlier on. Actually, was it adequate parking spaces? And you said yes. Now, when Councillor Routley just said no, there is not adequate parking spaces now for the types of houses that we've got. Also, as well, what brought to my attention as well, when Councillor Watkins was on about the charging points, why hasn't the council or the planning officers now actually requested now that if you're going to put these charging points around their site, why ain't they now added to the properties itself now to be built with the charging points in? Because they're trying to say in the years to come now we want to go all fully electric. You know this it's going to be cars on the road which are not going to have, there's not going to be enough charging points around the country to charge a car at any one time. So I thought the council might would have put something in with the policies and with adding the charging points actually to the houses itself, the new built houses.
Yeah, so there's a condition we're recommending, which requires a scheme for vehicle charging points across the development, and the applicant then has also made a commitment that every residential parking space will have infrastructure to put in a vehicle charging point in the future.
Councillor Jordan.
So why don't they attach them to the actual property itself then, already attached within the property? So it's straight plug into the house instead of putting it ready for them. It's just going to come to a cost then to the public then to have them put in. If they're already on a new build, they're all ready to go.
I mean, some of the parking spaces are slightly detached from the house, so that might not be necessary. I mean, obviously, electrical vehicles aren't yet, the vehicle that we all are able to afford and able to use. So, it's still a little bit way off in the future. That scheme, is what we're recommending at the moment across developments. And it may be that scheme does include some charging points attached to houses.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Jordan. Councillor Trevor Watkins.
Two things. Sorry, Gail, we're on parking again. Are there any visitor spaces for the properties allocated?
Yeah, there are visitor provision within the scheme, and yeah, the Council Highways officers looked at that and are satisfied with the provision provided.
Okay, the other thing is I've noticed on occasion when I'm travelling back and forth into town through the Usquay that the BMW and Mini people, when they have vehicles delivered on low loaders, they're parked on the East Dock Road. Now, have we had any objections from them in regards to this development, in regards to access and parking and delivery vehicles for them?
No, nothing from them at all. No.
Not what concerns me in regards to the offloading of new vehicles and the distributing of parts and what have you. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Anyone else? Any other committee member wish to comment? No. I don't usually comment, but if I could just have 3 pence, Gail. The one issue that concerns me overall is the parking situation. I do drive around the city from time to time in my capacity as chairman of planning, and already in this area on the Mariners Quay side, there are cars parked on pavements everywhere. If you go after 5 o'clock, so to speak, and that would be of a concern to me. I'm wondering whether all the parking could be accommodated. And then the other point is this play area at the north end of the site. I actually opened that development when I was cabinet member for regeneration many years ago, and it's sad to see the demise of that play area. And I'm a bit concerned that it hasn't been properly maintained. And if there's any part of it left, which developer will pay for that regeneration to its original state? This is where the old town dock wall is, etc.
So yeah, so that where the old town dock wall is currently exposed, that's also incorporated into the landscaping scheme. So like I said, it is an opportunity to kind of restore or provide something better there, and that will be the applicant's maintenance responsibility going forward.
Would we put a condition on that, or would we just hope that they would attend to it?
Oh, so the landscaping condition requires them to give us a maintenance plan, and that they have to maintain for 5 years. 5 years, being the period of time where planting can establish itself.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Any other committee member? Could I ask? I've just been advised. Anna Griffiths, is she in attendance? She's our highways officer. Could she just elaborate a bit on the parking situation in general on this old town dock site? Sorry to drag you in, Anna, but if you're here, let's hear from you.
That's no problem at all. Yes, I worked with Gail on this site and with the developer, and we have found that this is one of the better sites actually for parking provision. They meet all the standards as approved in the Newport City Council's parking standards. They meet all the requirements. They have applied for a sustainability assessment that is provided in Appendix 5 of that standard, which allows for reduction of 1 parking space per unit. On the northern side of the site, this was acceptable because of the walking distances to facilities. At the southern end of the site, the reduction in parking does, however, rely on the provision of the convenience store, which is 202 metres squared and is part of the development. But we did consider conditioning that but as it will be provided with A3 use, there's no requirement. But we negotiated with the developer over several iterations of this development to particularly provide visitor parking, and they've really worked and provided the levels of parking that we required. So I can raise no objection at all to this development and the parking that's been provided. In fact, it is far more generous than most of the other developments within Newport.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for that detailed explanation. Are there any other committee members who wish to contribute, please? If not, is somebody prepared to make a recommendation?
Sorry, Chair. I just put my hand up there. Could we actually put a condition in then where that green space is, where the dock wall is, to have a play area put there then for the children in that area at all?
So we've put in a condition to require details of the play provision across the sites. So just bearing in mind that the flexibility possibly that the applicant needs in terms of delivering a good landscaping scheme, a good sustainable drainage as well. I don't think would be necessarily a good idea to be that prescriptive at this point as to where play provision would be, but certainly, you know, the details of that play provision is necessary and it will be secured through a condition.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Thanks. Cheers, Chair.
Councillor Jordan, thank you. Councillor John Guy.
Chair, all I was going to say, I think Trevor Watkins has put his hand up again, hasn't he?
Yeah, I've missed Trevor. I'll be in trouble now. Sorry, Trevor. Councillor Watkins. You go first.
Yeah, just to say that can we have that condition on the time scale in regards to the charging points being put in, say in 5 years or 10 years or whatever, as long as there's a condition of time scale, please, Gail.
Yeah, I've made a note of that.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and apologies, Councillor Watkins. My last one is Councillor Jason Jordan again, but I think you've been in, Councillor. Councillor Guy.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Guy.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is that I propose we accept the officer's recommendation and to make sure that any conditions discussed that are covered with it, really.
Okay. Is there somebody prepared to second that, please?
Yeah, I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jordan. Could we organise the vote on that, please?
No problem, Chair. Thank you. Councillor Guy, can I have your vote, please?
For the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
For.
Councillor Watkins?
For.
Thank you. Councillor White?
For.
Councillor Routley?
For.
Councillor Ferris?
For.
Councillor Jordan?
Yeah, for.
Councillor Spencer?
For.
And finally yourself, please, Chair.
For. Thank you.
That's a unanimous vote for, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, committee. The final item on the agenda, I believe, is the appeals decision, pages 41 to 46, and they're just for noting. The committee agreed to note those decisions.
Yeah, agree, Chair.
Yeah, noted.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Thank you very much. And that really concludes the business of this planning committee. Thank you all for attending and thank you all for your contribution. And I won't wish you a safe journey home because I know you're all home. Okay.
Well, I hope Councillor Guy can have his breakfast now.
Well, I had it with the